Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, What Accountants and Financial Planners Should Know About SMSF Outsourcing. We've had about 60, just over 60 registrations in total this morning, which says to me that there's real interest in this topic. And that doesn't surprise me. It's a topic that whenever I mention it, people get into debate, and some people get very emotional about the topic of outsourcing, either on the positive side or on the negative side. In my opinion, the ones on the negative side that have had a bad experience haven't gone about it properly, and that's why they might have had a bad experience. And I want to talk a lot about that today and what you can do to make sure that you do have a good experience if and when you go down the outsourcing route. There's one thing that's very, very clear, and that is that the demand for outsourcing, the use of outsourcing, is growing significantly, and it's growing very quickly. I see that in the actuarial certificates that come through, that more and more are being prepared by organisations that provide outsourcing activity. And I see it just from talking to people in the industry as well, and also from the number of outsourcing providers there are out there. And there wouldn't be more and more providers popping up if there wasn't demand for the service. The fact that there's demand for the service says that outsourcing must have something that's going for it. So we'll explore that today, what that might be. So my name is Greg Einfeld. I'm the owner and the founder and the actuary at Lime Actuarial, as I think most of you would know. I got into the actuarial certificate business because I needed to order an actuarial certificate. I tried some of the different providers. I think they all fulfilled their promise of providing the certificate, but I thought that I could provide certificates at a lower cost and turn them around faster and make the process a bit easier as well. And I thought that would be a good thing for the SMSF industry. So that's what I did, and here we are. At the end of today's session, I'm going to make two special offers to you. So we'll talk about that. So please do hang on for the end for those special offers. We're going to leave questions till the end as well. So feel free to ask questions as we go along by typing them in to the question box. And in most cases, I'm going to wait until the end of the session before responding to those questions, if that's okay, just to keep the flow of the presentation going. And sometimes your questions might get answered a little bit later on as well. If you do ask a question, just provide a little bit of context so I can remember what section of the presentation you're referring to when you ask the question. I'm going to talk quite a bit about some real stories about outsourcing today, and some of my experiences, some experiences that other people have had. What I'm not going to do though is mention any provider names on this session. And if you are interested in learning more about the providers, I'm very happy to speak to anybody individually after the session, and I can talk to you about who some of the providers are that you should be speaking to. So let's get into the presentation itself. Now we have, I just got a message from Tony that he doesn't have any sound, but he's got it back now, so that's good. That must be something at your end, Tony, because everybody else can hear me loud and clear, I believe. So let's get going into the presentation. So these are the topics I'm going to talk about today. I'll give a little bit of an introduction. I'm going to talk about the benefits of outsourcing, and there's a lot more benefits than what many people are aware of. I will address many of the common criticisms that you hear of outsourcing, and I'll give you my views on those criticisms. I'm going to talk about the secrets to success, and this is really important because if you are going to go down the outsourcing route, I can assure you that if you don't go about it the right way, it won't be successful for you. So you really do need to keep these secrets of success top of mind. Then we'll talk about the different models that are available and which might be the right model for you, and then off the back of that, who might be the right provider for you, and then there'll be a few concluding comments. So that's what we're going to do today. Hopefully that is in line with what you expect to get out of the session. So the big question that lots of people have been asking me since I started announcing that we were going to run this session is, why are you running this webinar? A lot of the outsourcers have come to me. Perhaps they're a little bit concerned that I'm going to start treading on their turf. So I'll say this loud and clear. No, I'm not planning to do that. I have no intention of operating an outsourcing business. I think it's a good business to be in for those people that do it really well. There are others that can do it much better than I will ever do it, and good luck to them. And I'd like to see them continue to do so and build great businesses that can be of service to the SMSF industry. So no, that's not why I'm running this webinar. The reason I am running the webinar is because I'd like to educate the SMSF community. I think outsourcing is a great thing if done properly, and I'd like to talk more about it and give the opportunity to those of you on this webinar to learn more about it. So that's what I'm here for. There's no vested interest whatsoever. So that answers that question. And then the next question that you might well ask is, well, what do I know about outsourcing? So the golden rule of presenting is you should always be the most knowledgeable person in the room, or in this case, in the webinar on the topic. On this particular occasion, I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person. I know we do have a couple of outsourcing providers that are listening in as well, and so it's good to have you on board. Thanks for participating. So I've broken this rule today. I'm not necessarily the most knowledgeable person, and for those of you that do know more than I do about outsourcing, feel free to make a couple of comments as we go along through the question box. But I certainly do know a reasonable amount of about outsourcing. I have experienced outsourcing myself. I've visited numerous operation centres both in Australia and overseas. I'll come back to this topic about Australia because you can outsource within Australia. You can also outsource overseas. We'll talk about that later. I found it eye-opening to visit these centres and to see the way that the operations work, to see the conditions that people work in, to see some of the security arrangements that are in place. I was really blown away when I saw some of these, and it's a great thing to do. And for any of you that are considering outsourcing, you may even want to go and visit some centres yourself before embarking on it, and I think you'll be quite impressed with what you see. And I've spoken to a lot of people that have outsourced, and I've also spoken to a lot of people that provide outsourcing services. So through all of that, I certainly know something about outsourcing, and I'd like to share my experiences today. Okay, we've had a comment here from one of the providers who said, good to see that this is a webinar without any vested interest. Hopefully that helps accounting firms have unbiased views. So thank you very much for that comment. As I said, I'm not going to mention the names of any outsourcing providers on the call. Happy to do so afterwards individually. So thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for that comment. Okay, let's move on to the next section. So the next, here's a picture of one of the centres that one of the organisations that I visited. This is actually not the centre that I visited, but it is another centre that this particular organisation, where they used to be located. And you can just get an idea. This is in Vietnam, this particular one, and you can just get an idea of the conditions they work in. It all looks pretty modern. They've got modern looking computers and all of those sorts of things sitting there. This organisation's moved into more modern premises since that time. This is what it looked like when this particular photo was taken. So, the question I'm going to ask you here is, what keeps you awake at night. When I speak to accountants and financial planners, typically these are the three most common themes that I hear. Uh, Finding new clients, attracting and keeping staff, and maintaining profit margins. So that's what I hear, but I'm interested if that's the same as what you're experiencing for those of you that are on this webinar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a quick poll, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what are the things that keep you awake at night. So let me launch this, and hopefully in a second you'll be able to see these questions on your screen and you'll be able to respond. You can tick more than one box if you'd like to. So feel free to tick more than one box. I'll leave that open for a little bit longer, and we'll see if the issues that you're experiencing are consistent with what other people are telling me. Okay, I'll leave it open for about 5 more seconds. So let's just get the last couple of votes in. Okay, I'll close that now. And I'm sharing the results. So you should be able to see the results, things that keep you awake at night. Okay, so maintaining profit margins is a clear leader. And then the other ones, finding new clients, attracting and keeping staff, they're important for many of you as well. Some of you have a problem with your spouse's snoring. I can't help you with that, I'm sorry. And then there's some other issues as well that you have, and so I'm not sure if outsourcing is necessarily going to help you solve the other issues. In relation to the three issues that I did identify, I'm just going to hide those results so you can remember what they are. The most common one was maintaining profit margins, and then there were quite a few votes for finding new clients and attracting and keeping staff. So we should be back to my presentation again now. And in terms of where outsourcing is going to help you here, I have no doubt whatsoever that outsourcing can help you in terms of the margins in your business. I think outsourcing can help you in terms of attracting and keeping staff. In fact, I'm very confident that it can. And the reasons for that are that it allows your staff to work on other tasks apart from the mundane tasks of data entry, and it opens up new growth opportunities for your business. So a lot of people that use outsourcing find that that's helpful for them. And then in terms of finding new clients, outsourcing, I don't think in itself is a marketing tool, but what it can do is free up capacity for you to take on new clients. So it can directly help you with maintaining profit margins and attracting and keeping staff, and then indirectly I think it can help you find new clients or as well by freeing up capacity. So from all of those perspectives, if they're the issues you're experiencing in your business, then outsourcing is something that may be of assistance for you. Okay, so that finishes the introduction. Let's talk about the benefits of outsourcing, and I've come up with 8 different benefits. A lot of people say, oh, outsourcing is all about reducing costs, and while that is certainly an important benefit, it's not the only benefit, and I've come up with 7 others. So let's go through them. So the first one is cost. It won't surprise you to see that here. Now, I want you to think about the cost of hiring somebody and it starts off with their salary, obviously. Then what we need to add is all these add-ons, like perhaps you pay them a bonus, you pay them super, of course, workers' comp, perhaps payroll tax if your business is large enough, recruitment fees, you've got to train them, and you've got to entertain them, which might mean putting on the company Christmas party at the end of the year, taking them out for lunch and so on. So all of those things are costs of employment. Then you've got the office expenses that come with hiring people. You have to give them a desk, so there's rental costs, and you have to give them a computer, and then there's IT support and stationery and all those types of things. And then you may also have issues with industrial relations where you want somebody's not working out, but you're forced to continue to employ them in a particular way that you don't want to. So outsourcing can help you overcome all these types of things because you don't need to worry about them and make those payments. So it can reduce your costs in a whole range of ways that people often overlook. The next benefit of outsourcing is that it smooths out the peaks and troughs. So every business has peaks and every business has troughs. You have times when you're busy and times when you're not. When you outsource, you pass this problem on to somebody else, and you don't have to worry about paying people during the times when there isn't as much demand for your services. I should mention we'll explore different models of outsourcing later on, and not every benefit applies to every model, so keep that in mind. There are different ways to outsource, and so peaks and troughs, for example, will help solve this problem for some of the models, but not necessarily others. Expertise. Now, you might think it's strange that you can get more expertise by outsourcing. The reason this is the case is that the businesses that provide outsourcing services have staff that specialize in the particular area that you're outsourcing, which might be self-managed super funds, for example. And this can be the case whether you outsource within Australia or overseas. So even in overseas centres, I met a number of people in Vietnam, for example, that have been performing SMSF accounting services for 10 years full time. So if you work 2,000 hours a year, they've put in 20,000 hours doing accounting for self-managed super funds. And there wouldn't be many people in your typical accounting firm that have spent 20,000 hours doing accounting for self-managed super funds. So you can actually get people that do have a lot of experience and expertise in the particular field that you are looking to outsource. The next thing that outsourcing does is it frees up your resources. So we talked earlier about one of the issues being finding and retaining good staff. So outsourcing can free up your resources. You pass on some of the, I'll call it mundane work, to another organization, and it frees up your resources to do other things, which could be expanding the range of services that you offer. It could be taking on new clients. Whatever it might be, it allows your business to grow. The next thing is staff engagement. So once you've freed up the resources, the people that were previously doing data entry work, for example, and the more mundane tasks can now start to work on what they might consider to be more exciting tasks, which could be advisory tasks, advisory work, for example, and that is going to make them more engaged as employees. Outsourcing can help you remove key person dependencies in your business. So I know that this is one thing that some accounting firms struggle with, is you might have the one expert in your business that knows the intricacies of BGL, for example, and if that person was to leave or even go on holidays, then it means you just can't do all the work you need to do for your clients' SMSFs. By outsourcing, what you're doing is you're taking away that key person dependency risk because you're passing it on to an organization that could have 5 or 10 or 50 specialists in BGL or whatever the software is that you are using, whatever the task is that you are outsourcing. So it takes away the key person dependency risk from you. Outsourcing can help you take advantage of the latest technology and services, and that's because the organizations that provide outsourcing services are across what is going on in the industry to a greater extent than you have time to be able to do yourself. And I'll give you an example of this. Last week, or perhaps a couple of weeks ago, I saw a great presentation from an organization that helps set up self-managed super funds where instead of having to order a trust deed from one place and set up a Macquarie bank account separately and then enter all the same details into your SMSF software and then apply for an ABN, where you're typing the same information into all these places. So what this organization does is you type the information in once and it does all of those things for you at the press of a button. So it saves you time, it makes the whole process faster and easier. There's less errors, there's less risk of typing something in incorrectly, and overall much better service, and they're not that expensive either for what they are providing. So that's a great example of a new technology, a new service that most accountants probably won't hear about because you're not able to be across these things as much as an outsourced provider is able to do themselves, because they're dealing in much larger volumes. And I'll say that actuarial certificates are another example as well, where a lot of accountants are still using outdated methods of ordering their actuarial certificates, or still paying, say, $160 plus GST for their actuarial certificates, where they could be doing it in a more cost-effective and easier manner. People management. So I know that some accountants love managing people and some don't like managing people. If you outsource your work, then it's just one less thing that you have to do is managing people. And if that's something you don't like doing, then outsourcing is going to be helpful for you. So there were 8 different benefits of outsourcing. And as you can see, there's a lot more to it than just reducing your costs. Now, reducing costs, of course, is important. Nonetheless, there are a whole lot of other benefits as well. Okay, now I'm just checking the questions. Philip looks like he's lost his connection. Philip, it's your end. You seem to be the only person that's having this problem. So I'm sorry about that. It seems to be at your end because I'm not seeing any messages from anybody else. Okay, let's move on to the next section. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for telling me that there's no problems there. So we'll keep going. Okay, secrets to success. So, oh, sorry, I think I've jumped the gun there. Common criticisms. So the common criticisms of outsourcing, let's talk about those, and I'm going to give you my opinion on all of them. So one thing that is often complained about is the quality of the work that comes back. Now, I hear a lot of stories where accountants will give 1 or 2 jobs to an outsourcing provider and the work comes back not in the way they're expecting, and so their view of outsourcing is tarnished forever. And I think it's unfortunate. I'd like all of you just to conduct a very quick exercise for a moment. What I'd like you to do is think back to the very first time that you ever hired somebody, and then if you can remember, think about the first time you asked them to do a particular piece of work and they worked on it and they came back to you and they're probably very excited because they thought they had done a really good job, and they gave it to you and you looked at it and you thought, nah, this is not meeting my expectations. So you can open your eyes again. And so the question I'd ask to you is, when that happened, did you decide at that point, do you know what, that didn't work out, I'm never hiring anybody again? Because that would be a foolish decision to make. And I think it's the same if you give 1 or 2 pieces of work to an outsourcing provider and it doesn't come back exactly the way you expect, and that you then decide, no, I'm never going down this route again, because outsourcing is an investment. But if I look at why in your situation, when you made that hire, why it didn't work out, maybe the issue was yours. Maybe you didn't recruit well. Maybe you didn't recruit the right person. Maybe you didn't give them enough training or explanation about what they were going to do. And it's the same with outsourcing. It's an investment of time, and it is going to take a little bit of time to get it right. And once you do have it right, you're going to get the quality of work. And it's the same as with hiring a new person. It takes a little bit of time before they start working at the level that you are expecting. In my experience, though, once you do get it right, the quality is actually good. I'm not going to say it's perfect. There will be some errors from time to time, but that's no different from hiring somebody within your own business. I don't think any of us have staff that never make any mistakes. But in my experience, and the experience of other people that I know that do outsource, if they go through the steps I'm about to tell you, and if they choose the right provider, then the quality of work can be and should be and will be good. The next issue that I hear people complain about is security. They say, what's going to happen to my client's data? So a lot of this is about using a provider that you are comfortable with. But let me tell you what I've seen and some of the experiences. So there's two ways that data can go missing and or can privacy can be violated in theory. One is if the data is stored electronically somewhere and an external party hacks into that system. And the second one is if a staff member takes that data with them and does something inappropriate with them, with the data. So let's talk first about the IT security. So in just about every model that I've seen with every outsourcing provider, the data either sits on the server of the accounting firm or the financial planning organization, or alternatively, the data sits in a very reputable cloud-based environment such as Class Super or BGL 360 or Supermate or perhaps Dropbox. And these are organizations that pump hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars every year into making sure that they have the best possible security. So I don't believe that data security is more of an issue when you outsource than when you do it yourself in-house. The other possibility I said is staff taking data inappropriately. And so what I would say there is I've seen organizations where the staff walk in the morning, they have to hand over their phone, they're not allowed to take any paper into or out of the office, and so there is no opportunity for them to take any data with them when they leave the office. So there are some really good security arrangements that are out there. And I'd also pose the question, not that I think it does happen, but if somebody that was overseas did take your data, then you have to ask, are they going to actually know what to do with it compared to somebody that's in Australia? I think an Australian person is more likely to be able to use your data inappropriately than someone overseas. And if the overseas piece is a concern for you, as I said, there are options to outsource in Australia as well. So personally, I don't see security as being a big issue. Unemployment. So there's this concern out there among some accountants and financial advisors that if I send work, in this case overseas, then I'm taking away the jobs of Australians. Now, there's economic arguments about this. Any economist will tell you that sending work overseas might take away a particular job from an Australian that would have been doing that same work, but it creates jobs in other areas. Now, having studied economics, I agree with that argument, but I can see that it's a complex argument and You may or may not agree. You may also like the fact that if there's one job less in Australia, there's one job more somewhere else in the world, in a developing country where perhaps somebody needs the job more than they need it in Australia. Let me make another comment though about unemployment, because what I have seen and what I've experienced personally is that outsourcing can actually help you create roles in Australia as well. And that might sound a bit unusual. Uh, the way that I've seen it happen is where an organisation doesn't have the budget at the time to employ more people in Australia. And so what they do is they employ more people overseas, which gives them the ability to grow their business, which then gives them the ability to also employ more people in Australia. Because I don't think it works to have all your staff in an outsourced environment. I think you do need to have some people in your office that are dealing with clients and liaising with the people in the outsourced provider. So it's important to get that balance right. And as I said, I've experienced that outsourcing can help you grow your staff numbers in Australia as well. Not straight away, but certainly in the longer term, by getting that balance right between who you have in your office and who you have in the outsourced provider's office. And then finally, I hear criticisms of outsourcing providers being sweatshops. I'm not sure where this particular photo came from, certainly none of the places that I visited. I was very impressed with a lot of the organisations that I visited overseas. They had modern offices. Uh, I showed you the example before. That was an organisation before they moved into their current premises, which their current premises looked like the offices of most of us that are participating in this webinar. And I'll give you a great example. I've seen organisations where they use 2 screens, so every employee has 2 screens in front of them, which is great when you're doing data entry because you can copy information from one to the other. I would say that most accounting firms in Australia don't give their staff 2 screens. So in that respect, you're getting a better environment overseas than you are necessarily in the offices in Australia. So I haven't seen sweatshops. They may exist. If they do, then don't send your work there. Send your work somewhere else where the environment is different. So those are the criticisms that I hear, and those are my views on those criticisms. Let me just check if we've had any more questions coming in. Okay, no more questions, that's fine. So let's move on to what I think is the most important part of this presentation, the secrets to success. These are the things that you need to do if outsourcing is going to be successful. The first thing is commitment. And commitment is absolutely critical with anything that you do. So this picture here was taken in the Tour de France. Do you think that these cyclists just decided one morning, I feel like riding in the Tour de France, and they went out, they bought a bike, they did a couple of laps around the block and said, okay, right, I'm now ready to do the Tour de France? Of course not. They went through a little bit of pain along the way, I'd say a lot of pain in their case, in order to get there. And they would have had a plan where over a number of years, they would have improved and improved to the point of excellence. And outsourcing is very much like that as well. It only works if you are committed to it. If you try 1 or 2 cases and see what it's like, the chances are you won't have a good experience. Your staff won't take it seriously. The result you get won't be great, and you'll say, I'm not going to do this again. If you're going to do outsourcing seriously, you need to say, we're going to do this for a year or 2 years, and we're really going to give it a good go for that period of time. We're going to invest in it, we're going to invest time in it, and we're going to make sure that it works. Because if you do that, you've got a far better chance of success. And I can assure you that the organizations that are doing successfully, they started off by being committed. It's like the story about the bacon and eggs and comparing the pig and the chicken, for those of you that haven't heard this before. Uh, the chicken was involved, but the pig was really committed, and that's what you need to be in this situation. Now, flowing on from commitment, what you need is leadership, and you need to build the right culture. So you will have a situation where your staff in Australia have concerns. They might have concerns perhaps about their jobs, which I think are unreasonable concerns, but they're understandable at the same time. Because, of course, the point here is not to reduce headcount necessarily. The point is to grow your business and to free people up to do other things. Uh, Nonetheless, they will have concerns. They'll also have concerns about quality on day one. And so it's your job as the leader of the business to push through that and to stand up and explain why you're doing it, why it's going to be in your staff's long-term interest and in the business's long-term interest and in your client's interests as well. So you really do need to demonstrate leadership here and to build the right culture and to build harmonious relationships between your staff in the office and the staff in the outsourced provider as well. So I've seen examples where the partners in the Australian accounting firms go overseas and they meet with their overseas staff, or if they're outsourcing in Australia, it could be with the Australian staff in a different location as well. And in some cases, they attend the Christmas parties together with their staff in the outsourced locations, whatever it might be. It's really important to build that culture and to get everybody working together effectively. The next important thing is to take it one step at a time. It's a journey, and it's not all going to happen overnight. And so I wouldn't say to you, go and take all your work from all your clients across all the different services you provide and hand that over to an outsourcing partner all at the one time. What I would say is start off with some work that you outsource, and I'm not saying just one or two cases, I'm saying a reasonable chunk of work, but start off with that work and hand that over and get that working properly and then build on it. And every few months aim to increase the amount of work that you are outsourcing. So have a plan and start off with a small amount, and the plan is that within 1 year or 2 years, you've got a much larger work and you're progressively moving more and more work to the outsourced provider over time. And I think you're far more likely to be successful by doing that than by going the big bang. The other thing that's really important is to choose the right model and the right partner for your business. So let's get into that and let's talk about the different models that are available to you, because not everybody is aware of the different models that are out there. So first of all, it's important for you to consider what services you want to outsource and what services are provided by your partner. So do you want tax agent services? If you're an accountant, then you probably don't. If you're a financial planner, then you probably do. And so there are some providers who are tax agents. There are some who are not. And there are some that can be whatever you want them to be. So keep that in mind. Then consider, is it just your self-managed super funds you want to outsource, or are you also looking to outsource personal returns, companies, trusts, businesses, and a whole lot of other things as well? Because so think strategically here, think down the track. Where do you want this to end up? And then based on that, consider which partners are going to be able to meet your needs there. Software. So if you, for example, use Class Super, then make sure that your outsourced provider can handle Class Super. Do you want your outsourced provider to provide any other services like a call center for you or administration services? This is particularly helpful for financial planners that have lots of forms that need to be completed. Do you want to provide power planning services? Once again, if you're a financial planner, then they might be able to provide power planning services for you. And look at what niche the service provider, the partner operates in. Are you a good fit? Most of their clients' accountants, if they are and you're a financial planner, then they're not the best fit for you. So it's really important to consider all of the different services areas, specialty of the outsourcing service providers before you choose a partner. The next area to consider is location. So there are some providers that are based in Australia, and there are some that are based overseas. Clearly, one of the benefits of overseas is they're going to come at a lower cost. And clearly, one of the benefits of using an organisation in Australia is that might be more acceptable to your clients. I'm not going to say that it will be, I'll say that it might be, and it really comes down to who your clients are and what they're looking for, and whether or not they are prepared to have their work done overseas. I think it's possible to demonstrate to many or most of your clients that it is acceptable to do the work overseas, but it may not be acceptable for all of them. And so this is something that you need to be able to weigh up. And I can't give you advice on which way to go here. I think you understand the advantages and disadvantages of both methods, and you can make an informed view for yourself. Of course, then there are providers that have a hybrid model where they have the work being done overseas, and then they have representatives in Australia as well that perhaps are checking the work and also maintaining the client relationship. So there are the three different models there, and it's really up to you as to which one of those you think is going to be most suitable for you and your business and your clients. Let's look now at two different alternatives in relation to control. And the one on the left is where you hire people. You have your own dedicated staff. This model tends to happen more overseas. You have your own dedicated staff, and they work on the systems that you use, and they do the work you tell them to do. You prioritize the work, you train the people, you recruit the people, and they are, for all intents and purposes, your own staff sitting in a different location. And you've got complete control over what they do. So that's the first model. And then the second model is the process model. So this is where you don't control the work they do. You hand over a set of inputs, which will be documents, files, whatever it is that you would need to give them, and they have their own teams with their own processes and systems and management, and they do the work and they give you the finished output. And what happens in between is not really your concern. Your concern is making sure that the finished product is correct. So there's two very, very different models there, and I think it's essential to consider which model is going to be right for you before embarking on outsourcing. And while you can switch between one model and the other, it's probably preferable to pick the model first before you embark on the outsourcing journey. And finally, once you've considered which model is right for you, have a think about who the right partner is going to be. And there's a number of them out there. Make sure you get the model right first, and then speak to one or more partners, and I'm happy to put you in touch with some of them. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. So that covers off the majority of the content for today. I am going to talk about some special offers for you in a second. Okay, I've just had a couple of messages coming through that you're getting a bit of static. So I'm not sure what's caused that. Hopefully that has now improved. I'll just wait to see if there's any comments here on whether the sound's improved or not. Okay, I'm being told the sound's good now, so sorry about that. Hopefully that didn't last for too long. Let's come back to the presentation. Okay, I'm just going through. Okay, so first part of our conclusion, just a little bit about us at Lime Actuarial. As I think you all know, we provide fast and easy actuarial certificates. We charge $110 plus GST. We're integrated with Class Super. For those of you on the call that haven't used our services before, I'm going to offer you today a free trial of our service. If you'd like to take advantage of that, please email me today and I'll tell you how you can take advantage. The offer will expire at the end of October. That gives you nearly 2 months. If that's problematic, then let me know and I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. Limit, of course, 1 per business for those businesses that haven't used our services before. So feel free to email me today. If you haven't got my email address there, it'll stay on the screen when I move on to the next offer. Special offer number 2. So if you're thinking of outsourcing and you're not sure which provider to use, then I'm happy to have a chat to you over the phone and talk to you about some different options, some organisations that I can recommend that you speak to. And that'll get you started along the journey. So once again, email me today if you'd like to take advantage of that offer, and I'd be very happy to chat to you. I don't make any commission or anything like that from any of these organisations. I will say some of them are clients of ours, not all of them that I would recommend are necessarily clients of ours, but certainly some of them are. But I'm really just looking here to help put accountants and financial planners in touch with organisations that can help them, and happy to have a brief conversation to enable that to take place. So that's everything for today. My contact details are there on the last slide. I'm now going to take questions. We've got nearly 10 minutes left. So I'm just going to move through the questions and comments. Feel free to stay on the line for as long as you'd like to, just to hear about the questions and comments. Okay, so first comment here. You made very good points in relation to quality and data security. It is just what's happening in the industry over the years, and that comment's made by one of the providers that's on the call. So thank you for that comment. Yeah, that's my experience as well. So thank you for that. Okay. Okay, so sound is better. No problem with the sound. Okay, the sound was problematic for a few minutes, but now it is good. Okay, so the only comments there were about the sound quality. I haven't got any other questions coming through, so hopefully that means that everything that I said all made good sense. I'm going to stay on the line for another couple of minutes to see if there's any more questions. If there's anything you'd like to ask me individually, feel free to send me an email or give me a phone call. Our contact details are there on the screen. Okay, we've got a comment here from Chris. Thank you, Greg. I'll be in touch. Thanks, Chris. I look forward to hearing from you and speaking. Thanks for attending today. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions come through, so I think we might finish up there. Thanks everybody for coming along. Don't forget the special offers in relation to either a free trial of our service or alternatively to have a chat to me about putting you in touch with some good providers. Thanks, Kim, for your comment there. And a couple of other providers have said thank you. So thanks everyone for coming along, and have a really good day. Bye.